Hello and welcome, CAD Junkies. This is Scott Schneider, film designer, and this is Rhino's Tip of the Horn. So this episode, I would like to talk about picture frames. What are picture frames, you ask? Well, picture frames are a way for you to bring in any type of reference, whether it be photographs or blueprints or drawings, and use them as background reference in the Rhino modeling workspace and to model from. Now, the first thing you want to do is go through in Photoshop and try to clean up whatever photo or whatever drawing that you're bringing in. If it's a blueprint and you've got something that's drawn fairly cleanly, such as an aircraft, which is the example I'm going to bring in today, you want to go in there and preset them so that they're already cropped to the correct length. And they really want to be the same length. If it's the side view and the top view, they want to be the same length. It'll be much easier to fit everything together. And I'm going to show you how to get everything scaled in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the right view, and I'm just going to type in picture frame, and I'm going to grab my side view of my airplane, and I'm just going to click somewhere here in the viewport. It doesn't really matter where. I'm going to click and drag. I'm just going to drag this out and then left click again. And it's brought in this image. Now what's different about this from what used to be in here, which was wallpaper, is this is actually a picture on a surface. So you can move this surface, you can scale this surface, you can scale it in different directions. I don't recommend doing it asymmetrically, but you can rotate it. You can treat it just like an actual surface, but with an image map on it. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and move it to my 0 point. So I'm going to snap to that endpoint there and then type in 0, and that'll put it right on the 0 plane. And I don't have an actual length on this, but I'm just going to guesstimate this. This is probably about 40 feet long. So what I typically do is I will give myself a couple of references, and it helps for lining everything up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a line tool, and I'm going to go to my curve line tools and just click and use a single line, and I'm going to let it snap to the midpoint. I'm going to turn off my center snap, so I'm just going to let it snap here to that midpoint. And it doesn't really matter where, as long as it's on the end of that edge. And that's why it's important to crop your images right to the drawing. It makes it much easier to do this process. So I'm just going to drag this out. I'm going to type in 40 feet. As you can see there, it goes way out there. I have no idea if this is actually how big this plane is, but for just today's example, this will be fine. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my picture frame, and I'm going to transform, scale, and you can either use 2D or 3D. Do not use 1D in this particular case, or it will scale it in one direction only, hence 1D. I'm going to use the scale 2D, and I'm just going to let it snap to my midpoint, and then that's my start point. And then I'm going to drag my cursor over here and let it snap to the midpoint on the other end of the picture frame, and left click again. And now I can freely drag this picture frame out. And you can see here it's changing, but it's not moving from its origin point. And I'll just drag this out until it snaps to the end of that line. And once it snaps to the end of that line, I'll left click, and now it is set to the length of that line. And we can reposition this again. Again, I can hit the move command, type in M for move, or go to transform move, select the corner endpoint, and then just type in 0, and that'll get me back to the origin. And we don't need this line anymore. It's done its purpose. So that just gives us our side view. And the next thing we want to do is we want to get in a top view. All right, so I'm going to go to my top view, and you can see here there's the plane for that. And we're going to again type in picture frame, and I'm going to grab my top view, and I'm just going to drag this out. And it doesn't really matter yet how big it is, because since my drawings are cut to the same length, I can just simply run the move tool again, grab move, snap to the midpoint, and then I'm going to just take this up and snap to the end point for that right now. And you can see we're very close, but not quite there. So again, I'll run the transform, scale, 2D, snap to that endpoint, come out to the midpoint of this surface, and left click again, and drag that out to the endpoint of the side picture frame, and left click again. And now it is sitting right there, and it's exactly the same length. So I can now move this if I want. So I can go to Transform Move, and I can grab that endpoint, and I can drag this down to the midpoint of that side view. And if you want to really get specific and line up between the spinners, then you can get in there and adjust that until it's right dead center on that. So those line up. For today's example, I'm just going to ballpark it. But as you can see here, now we've got a nice layout here. So then the next thing we want to do is go ahead and get our front view in here real quick. So again, I'll type in picture frame, and we'll grab the front view, and I will just drag this out again. And we will type in M return for move, and I'm going to grab the midpoint and snap it to the midpoint or to the endpoint of that top view plane. And again, we're going to go transform, scale, 2D, and I'm just going to let it snap to the midpoint and snap to the midpoint, and oops, I think I grabbed the wrong one. Scale, 2D, grab the midpoint and the midpoint, and something is not working right. Let's try our 3D. There we go. Something was not working right there. So just drag that out and snap that to the endpoint. And now we have our front, side, and top views pretty darn close. And again, you can line these up, the spinner, the 0 point of that spinner up specifically. And what might actually make that easier is the next thing I want to show you, which is we want to select these surfaces and we want to make them transparent. And because I find that this white's a little too stark. So I'm just going to bring my properties toolbar over here real quick, and just so you can see part of it here. And if I just click on that picture frame and I go under material, which is right here, the little paint tube, and under the settings you can see here under textures, color, it's got Avenger side, and I can adjust the transparency of this by simply dragging the transparency slider, and it should take down the transparency of that. As you can see there, it's adjusting transparency. So I'm going to take that to about, well, let's go about 60%. And then if I just click on the next picture frame, it'll automatically go to it, and I can again drag that out to about 60%, and click on the front and drag that out to about 60%. And I'll just move that back out of the way. And now it's just a little easier to see how to line things up. And you can go in and adjust where these all are in terms of the relationship. And again, you can get really precise and snap those all dead center so they're all lining up on the spinner. So that wraps us up. I hope this helps, and we'll see you in the next episode.